Hello, today is July 16th and it is 6:01 a.m. So I just wanted to let everyone know about and read off this one thing. It's basically referring to about how my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters, mainly for the Greedy Framer, are all being given the fourth time after they've played the courts for a full 3 times already. So I'm just going to read this out to you and so that you would know exactly what is going on. Yeah, so it's titled, This is the Fourth Time. The courts need to be aware and mindful of the fact that my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters are now being given a chance to make statements against me for the fourth time. And I repeat, for the fourth time, after they have already costed tons of money from taxpayer and government resources, requiring government informant and the retrieving of phone conversations for the first 3 false testimonies. Yeah, so the first one was November 20th. That was government informant. Second one was also the requiring government informant. And then after that, the third one required phone conversations to have to be retrieved. So these false testimonies that my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters made, only for all of these false testimonies to be found out as being complete and total lies, each and every time, costing tons of dollars from taxpayer money and government resources, each and every time, with the time they were caught after trying to make false testimonies against me, the second time even having my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters trying every greedy tactic, including incest and blackmail price tags of millions of dollars. So basically, incest was basically February 11th at 3:17 a.m., where my dad, the Greedy Framer, sent me a porn star's picture. Yeah, with his sister Farah's name on it. Sunny Leone's picture with his sister Farah's name on it, to try to say, do you want to have sex with my sister in exchange for illegal assurances of money? Now, we know for a fact what it was incest, due to the fact that they were told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m., this is an open advertisement for incest, and yet they still sent it. March 7, 2026, 3 times, showing from facts and evidences that these people were trying to get me to commit incest in exchange for illegal assurances of money before my brain savant would get freed. So, yeah. And so, where is this? I'm sorry, they incest and blackmail price tags of millions of dollars being sent to me as a way of trying to get illegal assurances of money from me before my extremely rare and profitable brain savant would get freed, before my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters went right back to making false testimonies against me for the third time, only for the courts to find out from the phone conversations retrieved that not one statement made so aggressively, and I repeat, so aggressively for the third time, was true in the least, but that each and every statement made were complete and total lies, again, for the facts from the facts and evidences retrieved from the phone conversations for the third time once again. So yeah, from now on I will not take breaks from middle of my writing, because they broke my charger for my laptop. Law enforcement did, so I can't type my journals or show it to you, right? So that's because of that, I can only do it from my tablet, due to which I'm only going to summarize after the entire page is done. So, yeah, phone conversations for the third time once again. The courts need to please be mindful and aware of this fact before letting my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters try to make false testimonies against me for the fourth time in court. All of the false testimonies that my dad, the Greedy Framer, made were proven complete and total lies and fabrications beyond a reasonable doubt, due to the November 20th, 2025 false testimony that my dad, the Greedy Framer, begged his Framer sisters to beg law enforcement to help make for them, had a government informant witnessing the entire fabrication process while it was being fabricated. So that was the November 20th false testimony. Basically had a government informant. They saw how eager my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters were, and then the government basically added a government informant in there to see how exactly what they were doing. And they found out that not only were these false testimony, they were fabricating November 20th as a false testimony, but they were planning on making more lies against me even afterwards. The second set of statements that my dad, the Greedy Framer, so they had already confessed the second set of statements to the government informant before November 20th. They didn't know that that was a government informant, and it wasn't until February 10th that they found out that it was a government informant, and that they had been caught with the second set of lies as well. Why do we know this? Because on February 11th at 12:22 a.m., 22 minutes past midnight, my dad, the greedy farmer, texts me saying, "So nice to hear from you after so long." And the only hearing we were having on February 10th was me and him arguing back and forth in court, and it wasn't very nice. I'll tell you that much right now. Yeah, he knows that. And then at 3:17 a.m., he's like, "Do you want this, sister of mine?" Like this big ugly old fart for the greedy framer at 3:17 a.m. with Sunny Leone's picture with her name, his name on the bottom. And then 3:56 a.m., he's like, "Do you want this, sister of mine, for illegal assurances of money?" And it's just like another big fat ugly old fart. And I'm just like, "No, thank you. But I know you just got caught with your second set of lies, which means that your framer sisters must have confessed to wanting to fabricate. Obviously, you get a free car mechanic. What do? Give them all your problems for free. You give them all your problems that you have. Their problem was envy against my brain savant getting freed, and me becoming extremely rich and them not getting any money out of it. So they gave November 20th, like, we want to fabricate this false testimony, but they also gave the other problems in the car. We want to make more lies, and we have these other lies. Can you help us with those as well? And February 10th is when they're told by the courts, like, we know you're lying. That was a government informant. That's why he's like, February 11th at 3:17 a.m., he's like, "Do you want this, sister of mine?" And then for the greedy framer with porn star Sunny Leone's picture, and then 3:56 a.m. he's like, "Do you want this, sister of mine?" Basically, commit incest with them, give me illegal assurances of money so that your mother is not the only one that gets the money. We know for a fact this is incest because on March 7, 2026, they're basically doing the exact same thing, sending me the porn star named Sunny Leone's picture with his sister Farah's name on it on March 7th, 2026, after he's already told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. that this is an open advertisement for incest. He couldn't care less. He wants an illegal assurance of money. Well, if I can enviously block it up, his brain savant, using all these false testimonies and lies, then I want a share. And in order to get that share, I will do anything possible to get it, which includes, "Do you want this, sister of mine? Do you want this, sister of mine?" Like these big, fat, ugly old farts. "No, thank you very much. But if you act normal, that would be greatly appreciated." It's that sort of thing. So it had a government informant witnessing the entire fabrication process while it was being fabricated. The second set of statements that my dad, the greedy framer, were aggressive, and his framer sisters were aggressively making, this is after November 20th, the one that they already confessed to the government informant as being complete and total lies, that they basically treated the government informant like it was a free car mechanic and they could give them everything for free. Sorry, I can't take my eyes off of it because they broke my laptop charger. And if I do, what ends up happening is I can't just keep clicking till I keep going with the lines. I have to go page by page on the tablet because they broke my laptop charger now due to getting rejected by all these women and girls. Yeah. So the second set of statements that my dad, the greedy framer, were aggressively making in court against me after getting caught with the November 20th false testimony were all confessed to the government informant while fabricating the November 20th false testimony that they were planning on these set of fabrications and lies even after fabricating the November 20th false testimony against me, only to make sure that there was no way that my extremely rare and profitable brain savant could get freed with me and my mother becoming extremely rich while my dad, the greedy framer, watching without even a job or that much, anything even remotely close to that much money. Obviously, you don't have a job, you don't have any money for the rest of our lives. And then my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters tried everything from forced marriage requests with their daughters, both for the greedy framer and the spokesperson's greedy framer mother's daughter, to blackmail price tags of millions of dollars to advertisements to commit incest with all of my dad, the greedy framer's disgusting, ugly old predator sisters, all highlighted with exact dates and times in yellow above, before marking more sets of lies and making more sets of lies and fabrications against me starting early April 2026. With these set of lies being made even more aggressively and the courts being played for a fool for the third time, only due to the fact that the only option that there was to make more lies, with the other option being to be being forced to watch me and my mother become extremely rich very fast, just as artificial intelligence predicted would happen due to my extremely rare and profitable brain savant getting freed and getting any illegal assurance of money, despite trying to get me to marry their daughters or commit incest, with a request being sent from each of my Dad the Greedy Framer's ugly old predator sisters, all being rejected. All right, so basically, yeah. Basically, it just talks about how yeah, I already said it. Like, there was a government informant, they were told everything, and so with follow. So they send me these incest requests, and then I rejected, obviously. Like, what the heck is wrong with you? You got to remember, till November, so November 20th, the government sees them trying to make false testimonies against me. Basically, November 1st, it's just like, sorry, just cracking my knuckles. November 1st, it was just like they had a government informant, and so the government informant before November 1st basically they told the government informant everything, not just November 20th false testimony being fabricated, but also the ones that they were planning on making even after November 20th. Sorry, I gotta read it like this from a tablet. Law enforcement basically broke my laptop charger because they don't want me to type my journals anymore. If I had that, it would have been a lot easier for me to read it off of it, but I can't because I don't have it. So yeah, I gotta read it off of the tablet. It's just a little hard because it's page by page on this instead of like scrolling like I would do with like a laptop. Just press a button and keep scrolling, but they broke the charger. So anyways, so they try incest on February 11th. So as soon as on February 10th he gets caught, he tries incest February 11th, 3:17 a.m., 3:56 a.m., followed by the last blackmail price tag of millions of dollars, with the $60 million one being most prevalent, all being rejected, with me immediately rejecting all of these disgusting requests right away. The only option that my Dad the Greedy Framer had now was to force the courts to listen to their lies and fabrications once again, or else risk being forced to watch me and my mother become extremely rich, while my Dad the Greedy Framer and his Framer sisters would be forced to watch from the side, with my Dad the Greedy Framer not even having a job anymore. So yeah, it's one or the other. Either you try to force the courts to listen to more of your lies and fabrications to get another chance of making more lies. So they got chance for November 20th, then they got more chance for subsequent lies that they were told on February 10th, 2026. We know they're lies. The courts told them that. And then after that, it's just more lies. They tried incest, blackmail, price tags, and then they tried more lies for the third time. The third time they made it very aggressively due to them thinking that this is their last chance. But even the third time they were caught. The phone conversations retrieved, they're found out to be lying again. So yeah, lying, and then lying again, with a break before the third time, where they tried incest, blackmail, price tags to try to get me to agree to giving them money in exchange for either incest with his big fat ugly old fart sisters, or give him illegal assurances like money, including a $60 million blackmail price tag sent to me at least 8 times starting February 21st. I said no to all of it, and I told law enforcement right away. I was like, obviously they're caught with the second set of lies, and the government informant was confessed to about everything. And so law enforcement basically went back to his sisters, and they're like, he knows that you confessed to the lies, and he knows that you've been lying about him. So yeah, I didn't agree to any of it. So they had no other option but to go back in and go in very aggressively. For a fact that my Dad the Greedy Framer would do this, since on February 2nd he forced me to call him. When I did, he tried to play very nice. He's like, can you come fix my doorbell? And then as soon as he hangs up, he calls the court in rage of anger, and he calls the court in a rage of anger, saying things about me being a horrible person, this and that. Basically what happened was, I didn't agree to any illegal assurance of money. He went into a rage of anger, and then he calls court right away, realizing that I knew exactly what he wanted. I didn't agree. I didn't even give him any fake assurances, due to which he went into a rage of anger. On February 2nd, seconds after sweet talking me and calling me by my baby name, only to go into a rage of anger and call the court and claim that I'm a bad person only because I didn't give him illegal assurance of money. Because at that time I was waiting like the government for him to actually make his demands, which would be obviously in the millions of dollars. He didn't make it yet on February 2nd, 2026. So both me and the courts and the government were waiting for this man to show his motive, which he did show. on February 17th, 3:02 a.m. As soon as he's told that my brain savant getting freed is inevitable, guess what? He knew about it all along, and he makes his list for Santa Claus, and he's got all these things like a $25 million Rolls Royce, even though Rolls Royces cost $500,000, and I would never drive one myself being a guy. I would only keep my Camry, by the way. It's just absolutely disgusting. You're not trying to look pretty, and you should be a tough guy, not drive around in a Rolls Royce just so that people think you're better than them. And then he also has like an 8.9 million euro mansion that he sends to me 19 times on the morning of February 19th. After 19 times on February 9th, morning of February 19th being sent to me through YouTube, after 19 times, I was like, February 19th, 19 times, that's easy to remember. I'm just going to turn off the TV now. And then I just went to sleep after that. Like, yeah, I've been blackmailed enough for money. And it coincidentally started the second he finds out on February 17th at 3:02 a.m. that my brain savant getting freed is inevitable. And then he remembers the list for Santa Claus and he gives it right to law enforcement. I was like, thank God. The man finally showed his motive. And you got to remember how he shows it. Like, till February 17th, 3:02 a.m., he keeps quiet about it. He's like, no brain savant. I don't believe this. Money? There's money attached? No. I don't believe this. You guys believe this? And then, like, the government's, like, not stupid. They know he knows. Like, come on, man. You spent all this energy making all these false testimonies against me on November 20th. And, like, all these lies that you had planned out with your sisters. And you then, yeah. Like, till then, you got to remember, this is February 17th. So, till then, the blackmail price tags haven't come. And the incest request incest request did come. So, the government's just like, come on, man. You're trying to get him to, like, sleep with your sister. It's like you commit incest with them. Something's definitely going on. You don't think there's any money involved? Like, definitely something going on. So finally, February 17th at 3:02 a.m., my dad, the greedy framer, is told by the government, like law enforcement, it's like his brain savant getting freed is inevitable. We'll have to let it go. Then he shows his real motive and he makes the list for Santa Claus and he's like, this, and this. This is what I want. The list included things like $25 million Rolls Royce, 8.9 million euro mansion in London, like all these things. Like, I was just like, thank you for letting me know about your motive. It was just, we were all waiting for this. So, like, February 2nd, it was just like, when I called him, he tries to sweet talk me. He's like, come fix my doorbell, Babaji, which is like my baby name, and he's calling me by my baby name, sweet talking me and this and that. And then as soon as he hangs up the phone, I know for a fact, I'm not psychic, but I know he's gonna call the court and go into a rage of anger because he knows he didn't get any illegal assurance of money, and he wanted it. And so yeah, he knew I knew what he wanted. Obviously, we both know that it's my brain savant that you're fighting for. Oh, come on, man. Like, come on. Like, seriously, like, you fabricated November 20th with your sisters, created mass panic and chaos with it. Like, you made all these lies on your free time with your framer sisters, planned it out, and then they ended up confessing to the government informant right before November 20th about all the planned lies and everything. But yeah, he spent a lot of time and energy doing this to think that there was no money involved. And then even after that, he's trying to get me to commit incest with his sisters as soon as February 11th he's caught with the subsequent lies. Like, come on, man. Like, you don't think any money is involved over here. So February 17th, 3:02 a.m., finally he reveals his real motive, which was money after all, and he knew about my brain savant, and he was a firm believer in it himself. I was really happy that he revealed his motive finally, because February 2nd, obviously he went into a rage after trying to sweet talk me. Like, he didn't get any illegal assurance of money, and in the end I just hung up. And, like, obviously he went into a rage. That much was obvious. So all fight for money, and it's so obvious. So February 17th, him revealing his real motive, and then once he revealed it, obviously he was pissed off, like, oh my God, I can't believe I revealed it. So on February 19th, on the morning of February 19th, he gets law enforcement to harass me with 19 times sending me 8.9 million euro mansion, 19 times on the morning of February 19th. I was just like, thank you for showing off your motive, because obviously you got to remember, February 17th, he reveals his motive. Once everyone knows about his motive, now he's stuck he has to blackmail, and he's going to try to do it as much as possible to try to harass me and force me into agreeing to these illegal assurances of money. Like, it's not that easy to harass people, and it's just like 19 times. I marked it as 19 times for February 19, 8.9 million euros, and then I just went to sleep. I'm not going to be harassed that easily. Yeah. So yeah, I was really happy that he showed his real motive on February 19th, February 17th at 3:02 a.m. But yeah, so the only option that my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters now had was to aggressively, and I repeat, as aggressively as possible, make lies and fabrications against me for the third time, and while trying to play the court for a fool for the third time, with these set of lies and fabrications being made as aggressively as possible, with the added anger from all the disgusting requests for the illegal assurances of money, while at the same time thinking that making lies and fabrications as aggressively as possible was the only way to be taken seriously in court after being caught fabricating and completely lying so many times. So yeah, basically, I gotta hold it on my finger because, yeah, actually you can highlight. I didn't know that. So basically, yeah, my dad, the greedy framer, he is like after the second set of lies is caught. So you got to remember for November 20th, and then after November 20th, you have more set of lies, and the second set of lies are caught because he spent all that time fabricating false testimonies, but he had already confessed to the government informant. His framer sisters did before November 20th while they were fabricating November 20th. So now you have November 20th, you've got more lies that are already confessed to the government informant as being lies, and then those get caught on February 10th, 2026. So basically, yeah. So now, after the second set of lies are caught, he's like, darn it, man. I bet he probably yelled at his sister, the framer sister, Ibrahim, the greedy framer, the spokesperson's greedy framer mother. He probably yelled at her a lot for telling the government informant about all the planned lies. And she was probably like, I thought he was a free car mechanic. I thought I'd give him all the problems for the car. I gave him November 20th. I thought might as well just give him the other planned lies as well. And I bet they had a lot of fighting going on over the phone about him being like, you idiot, why did you tell the government informant and everything? Like, yeah, that's what you get. They were planning on making these lies against me from before. And so basically what happened was they were planning on making these lies against me from before, and they get like a free car mechanic to help them with November 20th. And they're like, November 20th is not the only problem we have. We've got some more lies we want to make after November 20th. And the government informant obviously is just like that free car mechanic who's not for free. And he's just like, yeah. Tell me, what are the other lies? They just tell him everything. So the courts tell my dad, the greedy framer, on February 10th, 2026, we know you're lying. We know you're lying again after we gave you another chance. So he was kicked out December 29th, 2025. And as soon as he gets kicked out December 29th, 2025 at 1:27 p.m., he remembers the money. He sends me money, transfer ads for RIA. And obviously that, even before December 2nd, obviously we had proof, RIA money transfer ads, but it's not like the proof that has the money amount on there. You need the amount to really like look authentic in court. Like RIA money transfer ads, literally that moment that he gets kicked out of the spokesperson stand, he calls law enforcement right away, and he's like, send him that money transfer ad for RIA. See how he responds to it. Is he going to give me money now that Bryn Savon's going to get freed? So, he did think there was money involved, but the thing about it is, you need an amount for like court of law. Like, he asked me for this amount, he asked me for this amount. Like, just money transfer ads, just not enough, So yeah, like even February 2nd, I was hoping that there would be I was hoping that he would come out with his list. Santa Claus list is what I wanted. February 17th, 3:02 a.m. he finally does, and I was like, thank God, I finally got him. So yeah, after lying so many times, like what ended up happening was, like, after like making up all these lies, and like he tries incest, like February 11th through 17 a.m. he's like, do you want this sister of mine? And then at 3:56 a.m. he's like, do you want this sister of mine? And like, we know for a fact these are basically illegal assurance of money in exchange for incest with his big fat ugly old sisters, because we know this for a fact because on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. he's told by the court courts and law enforcement. Just letting you know, sending porn star's picture with your sister's name on it is an open advertisement for incest, and that is illegal in the U.S. So on March 7, 2026, he tries it again 3 times. Sonny Leone's picture with his sister's name on it 3 times on that morning, even though he's already told that this is open advertisement for incest. The man doesn't care. Like, when you're obsessed with money, you see money, artificial intelligence, basically, people believe on it. Like, people believe in it. Yeah. So basically, law enforcement told everyone about it, and obviously he was a firm believer himself, and he was lying the entire time. He was lying for 2 main reasons. One reason was obviously that if he obviously knew about the monetary potential, then his testimony and narration wouldn't be considered that much, because obviously he's narrating because he doesn't want my mother to have all the money, and he's been rejected all year, which means that the entire year of 2025 he was getting rejected because he wanted the money. He knew he knew about it from law enforcement, and he knew that I wasn't going to give him a single penny of it. Like, who are you, man? Like, I talk to you like once every 5 years. I live with my mother. Like, I don't know who you are. Records and evidence to show I've literally never lived with the man ever in my life, even when I was overseas, never even in the same country, never talked to him on the phone. So yeah. After the 3rd set of lies, basically he makes it really aggressively. So my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters lied for the 3rd time. Third time, basically, this is when after they tried incest and everything, then they try it for the 3rd time. And the 3rd time, basically, the phone conversations were retrieved for us to find out that every single thing he said was a lie. And he was making it very aggressively because he'd just gotten rejected from all the price tag blackmails that he'd sent me, and also from from all the price tag blackmails that he had sent me, and also from all the incest requests. So lied for the 3rd time, and I repeat, for the 3rd time, very aggressively, only for the phone conversations to be retrieved, and me telling the courts before the facts and evidences from the phone conversations retrieved were even presented, before the court, saying, Your Honor, you will find from the facts and evidences from the phone conversation retrieved that not one statement that my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters made so aggressively in court was true in the least, but that each and every statement that my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters made for the 3rd time were all, and I repeat, all completely false, with not a hint of truth to any statement that my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters made so far. Your Honor, my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters have played the court for a fool for the 3rd time, once again within time period of only a couple of months. So yeah, basically that's what I told the courts. I was just like, this is the 3rd time this has happened. First time was November 20th, then more lies that were already confessed to the government informant as being planned lies that they were already planning on making by the greedy framer spokesperson's mother, and then after that, they're caught twice with lying over and over again, and so they're just like, they're scared. Like, we just got caught twice, we got to come up with something, or else we couldn't lock up his brain salon, so now he's going to get freed. If it gets freed, then his mother gets all the money, we get nothing. And this is when I was waiting, this time period when I was waiting, like, come up with your list, give me the money amount. Give me the money amount is what I wanted from him. And he was waiting for me to just call him and give him the money amount, which I'm not that stupid to do. So like February 2nd, he forces me to call him by sending father-son ads all day, night long. We never got along. We don't talk to each other more than once every 5 years. So why are you sending me this? So like February 2nd, when he sends me all this, basically, like, I call him February 2nd, he calls me back right away. He apologizes for calling back late. He's a very cunning man. Very cunning man. We never got along. We don't talk to each other, okay? And yeah. And so basically what ends up happening is, I got the point, like 2025, I'm like, my mother raised me to be really polite and respectful towards people. And like, neither me nor my mother like him very, obviously not. He never did a thing for anyone. And like, my mother had to pay for everything. The reason I came back home early in 2017 was because my mother lost her job at Food Line grocery store, and I didn't have any money for food. And no one even helped me with food. I stayed hungry for like 3 days before I came home somehow back to my mother. Like, yeah, like neither me nor my mother like him. And so February 2nd, it was like a game we were playing. Who's gonna give up first? You gotta remember, I'm being harassed all day, night long using these tools, and I was not ready to give up on this game. He wanted me to basically give him illegal assurance of money before he'd even ask, and I wanted him to ask me for those illegal assurance of money. It was obvious he knew about the Brain Savant money. He wanted it, and he already kind of showed it on December 29, 2025 with that Ria money transfer ad at 1:27 p.m. But I wanted the money amount. Like, how much do you want? Give me the amount so that I could show it to court. Even right now, I only had his phone unblocked because I knew for a fact that he would call me frantically every time he gets caught lying, and then I would record that and take a screenshot of that and show it to court. Like, look, he just got caught lying May 2nd, 12:48 p.m., which is why he's frantically calling me like a psychopath. And after a while, he got the message that the only reason my phone is unblocked is because I wanted to know when he gets caught lying. Obviously, if artificial intelligence says that someone is supposed to become extremely rich, what do? You're like, either lock it up, no one gets it, or I get it. And every single time the courts tell him it's about to get freed, what does he do? Go into a panic. Frantic maniac panic. He starts calling me like insanity over and over again. So to make sure that he could somehow try to beg me or plead to me to try to get that money so that my mother is not the only one to get it. And the last time he did this was May 2nd, 2026 at 12:48 p.m. He gets caught lying again, and he goes into frantic maniac panic, and he calls me again like a psychopath. And he did this a couple times before as well. February 11th at 12:22 a.m., 22 minutes past midnight, he's calling me like a frantic maniac. And then 3:17 a.m., he's like, do you want this sister of mine? And then 3:56 a.m., he's like, do you want this sister of mine? And it's just like, man, calm down. Like, and obviously it was incest for illegal assurance of money, because on March 7, 2026, he's already told February 11th this is open advertisement for incest. If you send a porn star's picture with your sister's name on it, it's an open advertisement for incest. And then on March 7, 2026, he does the exact same thing again. He sends me a porn star's picture with his sister's name on it. So yeah, it was pretty clear that every time he gets caught lying or thinks that my brain savant's about to get freed, he goes into a frantic maniac panic and he starts calling me like crazy. So yeah, obviously, like, artificial intelligence were to tell you that such and such person is supposed to become extremely rich, you get caught lying against them. What do? You get scared. Like, everyone's going to get the money, you're not. So you got to call and beg and plead to try to get them to give you assurance of the money as well. And you're going to try to be as nice as possible, call them by their baby name, do whatever you have to, because now Envy has been caught with you lying again, trying to lock up his Brain Savant. So now you have to be as nice as possible. So I had my phone basically unblocked due to finding out exactly the times when he would lie, because he would go into that panic and try to beg and plead, and by calling me by my baby name. And so he did this on like 22 minutes past midnight, the entire night of February 11th, after the courts told him February 10th, like, your sister already confessed to these being lies as well. And then he does it again May 2nd, 12:48 p.m., after which time, it's no point, like, he's not going to fall for it again. But yeah, that clearly shows you the way he goes into a frantic panic, that it was all about money, and he would get scared that my mother's going to get all the money that artificial intelligence predicted from my Brain Savant, and that he's not going to get it, which is why he would go into this panic, and which is why I had my phone unblocked for so long. Like, I wanted that call and text to come and me showing the courts, like, Your Honor, he's lied again. For March 2nd, 12:48 p.m., he's lied again. He just called me like a frantic maniac in a state of panic, and he was scared that my Brain Savant would get freed and he wouldn't get any money. He was calling me and texting me with my baby name. He went into a panic because he got caught lying again. And this happened last time, February 11th at 12:22 a.m., the entire night of February 11th, which was like, do you want this sister of mine? Do you want this sister of mine? And so, yeah, so basically that's what it was all about. And thankfully, February 17th, 3:02 a.m., he gets told, like, Brain Savant getting freed is inevitable. Thankfully, they told him. So at first, he's like, let me make my videos for the government. And they're like, no one's going to watch your videos. You went after money way too many times since you made the video before June June 28, 2025. And so he was just like, he cusses out everyone in the government on February 17th, 3:02 a.m. Then he's like, fine. If his brain savant's going to get freed, then this is what I want. Give him this list. Now, once he gives me the list, he's caught now. So the only option he has is to try to harass me more and more with more and more blackmail price tags. He's got no other option. So basically, on the morning of February 19th, he sends me a price tag blackmail for 8.9 million euros, at least 19 times on that one morning alone. So basically, yeah. So the third time is after these blackmail price tags, and he's the third time he's basically he makes it very aggressively because he knows this is the only option he's got. Yeah. So if it's not for him being able to make more lies against me, then my brain savant would get freed. And obviously, I didn't agree to any blackmail price tags. Didn't even agree to any disgusting incest requests. Ew, big fat ugly old farts. Like, what is wrong with you? And so the only option he had was making lies against me for the third time, and that's what he tried to do. So basically, yeah. So this is exactly why I am pleading to the courts to not let people that have been caught lying in court so many times in just the last couple of months since November 20th, 2025, make any more narrations or testimonies against me any further, considering how many times my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters have been caught lying over and over again, only to create mass panic and chaos each and every time they did so in just the last couple of months. The courts need to please keep in mind the fact that even if my mother had to let me be adult supervised by any random person willing to watch me for free when I was a child, it was only until I gained the least bit of mental maturity as a child my mother had already spoken to law enforcement and let them know that she had to do this as a single mother beforehand, and let them know that it would only continue until I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and that me being adult supervised by any random person willing to watch me for free as a child when my mother went to go work at fast food restaurants or in factories at night could have only have had anyone saying something even remotely considered bad and not doing or even attempting to do anything even remotely considered bad as what my dad, the greedy framer, was doing in 2011 by giving sermons from his house every single day in 2011 to recruit people and encourage them to join terror groups. Every single day in 2011, in one of the 3 times I have ever met him in my life. So basically, I've only met him about 3 times in my entire life. My dad, the greedy framer, and one of those times was in 2011, where my dad, the greedy framer, was basically calling people to his house and giving them sermons. And the sermons that he would give them would be on mass murder of innocent human beings, basically encouraging them to join terror groups and mass murder innocent human beings. And he would give them each and every single day till law enforcement basically tipped him off. Obviously, I would have reported it, but I knew that law enforcement tipped them off. How did I know that law enforcement tipped them off? Because law enforcement always has. There was a crime that occurred, and Assad was involved in it. I know this for a fact. And what happened was law enforcement has had Assad narrate in the trial against me just recently, and literally no investigation done. No one ever asked any questions. Crimes covered over. In the year 2023, when law enforcement is trying to frame me for that wedding incident, there are basically running money fraud the entire year and sex schemes the entire year, and people like Assad that would be involved in the crime would basically be tipped off. So basically, this part of the journal basically says that when I was a child, if anyone was adult supervising me, it would only be one of law enforcement's own BFFs. It would only be while I was a child, and they would only be saying something even remotely considered bad around me and not doing anything. Nothing that they could do that would harm anyone in any way, shape, or form. Only saying something even remotely considered bad around me as a child. No one is harmed. No one, nothing bad is done. Okay, but in one of the only 3 times that I've met my dad, the greedy framer, in the year 2011, my dad was doing something incredibly dangerous and bad, where he was calling people over to his house in masses and giving them sermons on mass killings of innocent human beings, and he was only doing this to try to get more attention from people, because people thought that he had a big beard and that he had some mystical powers, so that people would listen to him. When in fact, if he was really that religious, then he wouldn't be obviously trying to get me to commit incest with his sisters for illegal assurances of money, only because he was caught lying way too many times, and he thought my brain savant would get freed, obviously. So in 2011, that is what happened, and that this recruiting people to mass murder innocent human beings obviously only suddenly stopped one day when my dad, the greedy framer, was tipped off by law enforcement, who decided to tip off my dad, the greedy framer, rather than to start an investigation into how many people from his sermons had joined terror groups so far, how many people had been mass murdered so far, and to investigate how long my dad, the greedy framer, had been giving these sermons to people in the masses from his house every day in 2011. Instead, law enforcement went into a panic when they saw these sermons being given to people in the masses from my dad, the greedy framer, in 2011, and so law enforcement then only had one of two options: either tip off my dad, the greedy framer, or be forced to start an investigation, something law enforcement never wished to do since 2001. Clearly seen from the sex games that law enforcement that started in 2001 with Uncle Joey's in-laws, due to which law enforcement had to run sex games for Uncle Joey in 2023, along with money fraud being run, and with the wedding incident criminals fully involved and present at the scene. Having people like Assad, who were never once questioned about a thing from the wedding incident that was then covered over without anyone asked a single question, only for law enforcement to go right back to running their sex schemes and money fraud right afterwards. The courts need to be made aware of the fact that even if there was an adult who merely adult supervised me as a child when I did not even have the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, it would only be that adult saying something and not doing or even attempting to do anything that would cause any human being any harm, like that my dad, the greedy framer, highlighted in blue above, was doing in 2011, most likely for years from beforehand. So I only saw it in 2011 for a couple days before law enforcement quickly tipped them off, only because they didn't want to start an investigation. They wanted to go back to their sex and money fraud that they were running, exactly what they were doing in 2023, before I won my case on August 25th, 2023, and I asked them for my right to be able to study. And instead of giving me my right to be able to study, what law enforcement does is try to frame me for a wedding incident, wedding I would not be involved in, not present in, not having anything to do with, not knowing anything about, and yet they were trying to frame me only to inhibit me from being able to study. So, which was a major crime, because it was plain and simply encouraging people. So what my dad, the greedy framer, was doing in 2011. Law enforcement's a witness, and you have all the evidence for this. So basically, compared to my mother, who's never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life for the more than 25 years, this is what my dad, the greedy framer, was doing. And plus, on top of that, after I became even slightly mentally mature as a child, I have never even remotely been in a setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever in my entire life, ever again, despite me never living with anyone else except for my mother my entire life. I've never even lived in the same country as my dad, the greedy framer, ever in my life, even when I was overseas. Never lived with him, even in the same country. You could check airline tickets, vaccine evidences, you'll find that. Not only that, I never talked to him on the phone either, ever in my entire life. Making it impossible for someone whom I never lived with or talked to on the phone to have had any influence on my life or environment whatsoever. I never lived with anyone except for my mother my entire life. Never talked to anyone. For the greedy framer, at one time, she made a false sexual accusation against me that she confessed to being a false sexual accusation against me to Sohaib, due to which, I never even went near her ever. I only talked to her on the phone if I did, and the reason was I was scared of that sexual accusation being made against me, so I never went near her. So she can't claim that anything like, oh, I had a change in his environment, nothing like that. I never even went near her ever due to that sexual accusation that she made against me, that she confessed to Sohaib as making against me. So So my dad, the greedy framer, was basically doing these sermons, encouraging people to mass murder innocent human beings from years from before. Okay, even before 2011, obviously, it suddenly just stopped one day, and I knew that law enforcement tipped them off. And there's no point in reporting someone if they've already been tipped off by law enforcement. You know, it's plain and simple. If that's what law enforcement's been doing since 2001, that's what they did, and that's exactly what happened. And the facts and evidence will show you that. You don't have to be a genius to guess this one. So yeah. And even if I was around someone when I was a child who might have merely said anything bad around me when I was a child, you have to remember two things. First thing is, it was BFF of law enforcement themselves, which is why they can't narrate in this trial themselves. They have to get other people that have incredibly invalid motives, like Junaid narrating in this trial. Despite him begging me only a couple hours ago at 1 a.m. on July 16th to basically help him scam these innocent, vulnerable girls into these stories that they want me to tell them. I'm not going to do that. And his motive is incredibly invalid due to the fact that he's a sex addict. He would come up in front and behind my car cameras to try to advertise himself for these girls. And so, yeah, only for me to go over to these girls and try to scam them, which is wrong, you know, which is wrong. And so, yeah, so, my dad, the greedy framer, was doing in 2011, most likely for years from beforehand, which was a major crime because it was plain and simply encouraging people to join terror groups to mass murder innocent human beings, and yet it was handled the exact same way as the wedding crime that law enforcement's BFFs like us were fully involved in, and yet never tried or even questioned about a thing till this very day today. So basically, yeah, my mother, for the past more than 25 years, has never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life. Not one time. For more than 25 years, not one word. And that time period when I was around anyone as a child, adult supervising me, it would have been law enforcement's own BFFs. And law enforcement's own BFFs, who could have even remotely have said something around me as a child that could be considered bad, compared to him, my dad, the greedy framer, doing something in 2011, he was tipped off just like how law enforcement's other BFFs were, who could have merely said anything bad around me as a child. So they were all tipped off, whereas my mother has never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life. For the more than 25 years she's been watched along with me. And law enforcement's BFFs that my mother left me behind with when I was a child, when I didn't even have the slightest bit of mental maturity to be left at home alone yet, as my mother said on February 15th at 8:30 p.m. She had already spoken with law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child about it, and let them know that that she had to leave me behind with someone, any random person who was willing to watch me for free, mainly law enforcement's own BFFs, for a little while, only until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, like how she repeated on February 15 at 8:30 p.m., and that after this time period, she would no longer have me, there anymore, because her force and necessity as a single mother would end. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, my mother, I was never around anyone ever again, not even remotely, where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me ever again. And even the time when it was only as a child. I had not gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and my mother had already spoken with law enforcement from beforehand. She'd made a promise that she fulfilled as soon as I became even slightly mentally mature as a child. And yeah, and after that moment that I became even slightly mentally mature as a child, it never happened ever again. I was never even remotely in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. So yeah, there you have it. Those are the facts and evidences, and the facts and evidence will support that. Mother has never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life. For fact number one. Fact number two, she wouldn't be at the place where I would be adult supervised as a child when I didn't even have the slightest bit of mental maturity, clearly proving that she was at work from facts and evidences. Fact number three, she did speak with law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, letting them know that I would only be there till I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, after which time I would never be in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me ever again, despite me never in my entire life living with anyone else except for my mother, with me not even living in the same country as my dad, the greedy framer. You could check the facts and evidences, the record, it will show you that, never even speaking with him on the phone, making him impossible for someone whom I've never lived with or even spoken with on the phone to have had any influence on my life whatsoever. And that's the record with my mother. And with me, from the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, compared to the record with my dad, the greedy framer, only met him 3 times in my entire life. And this is what he was up to in 2011, where he was recruiting people after calling him over to his house to give them sermons, recruiting them to basically mass murder innocent human beings. Every single day, and recruiting them, encouraging them to join terror groups. And it created so much panic in law enforcement that they had one of two options: either tip him off or start an investigation. Obviously, law enforcement did not start an investigation, didn't want to do it. Since 2001, they've been running sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws, due to which they had to give sex schemes for Uncle Joey so aggressively in November 2023 that literally would make a sitting governor envy, like this guy is being given all this protocol from law enforcement, being provided with top-notch intelligence on my whereabouts just to give him a sex scheme ad, only because their law enforcement themselves were receiving sex schemes from Uncle Joey's in-laws. Like, this is not how law enforcement works. This is not what their job is. So obviously they tipped them off. I didn't have to be a genius to know that they tipped off my dad, the greedy framer, despite him obviously encouraging people to join terror groups. You got to remember the fact that in 2023, when law enforcement wanted to frame me for the wedding incident, the entire year they ran money fraud and sex schemes, only for law enforcement to now use someone like Assad to narrate in the trial against me, only due to desperation, hoping that no one would find out that Assad was involved in the wedding incident. Not only that, he'd be seen in the wedding talking to the people that committed the crime the entire wedding, instead of talking to anyone else throughout the entire wedding, clearly showing from facts and evidences that Assad is definitely someone who should have been questioned. He never was, because law enforcement never did their job. Since day one, they never did their job. They couldn't care less. And the government is against them because the government's been asking them to investigate this, which they never did. Right now, when Assad got caught with the wedding incident, he simply packed up and left, and law enforcement told him, don't answer any questions, and he just left. It's just like, you want to ask law enforcement a question, like, whose side are you on? You want to do the investigation, or you want to help the criminals get away? And like right over here in 2011, they literally helped him get away. My dad, the greedy framer, every single day in 2011 was giving sermons. He would call people over to his house. Then he would give them sermons on going over and joining terror groups, basically committing jihad and joining terror groups, mass murdering innocent human beings every single day. And suddenly one day it stopped. And I was just like, maybe he had a change of heart, either one, or someone tipped him off. And obviously law enforcement tipped him off, and I knew they tipped him off. That's what they've been doing since 2001. They couldn't care about a thing. The only reason they even tried to frame me for the wedding incident or any of these crimes, like November 20th, which was a false testimony, crime setting was made up, or the subsequent lies, and like the child 25 years later claiming that I said anti-government things to him when I was a 10-year-old child, was only because they found out about my brain savant. I won my case on August 25th, 2023. Law enforcement became incredibly desperate to try to stop my brain savant from being seen performing out in the open for even 30 minutes, or else they would get extremely envious, and I would have power over all these girls that they're running their sex scams on, and I'd be extremely rich really fast, like how artificial intelligence said I would. So yeah, so that is exactly what happened, and this is what law enforcement's been doing. That's the only reason law enforcement started their quote-unquote investigation in 2023, after August 25th, 2023, despite them running sex schemes and money fraud the entire year, which the investigation only meant trying to frame me with the wedding incident, then the 10-year-old child claiming 25 years later that I said anti-government things to him, also fabrication. Then November 20th, also fabrication that law enforcement knew about before I even went to Russia in November. Law enforcement knew that they were fabricating this false testimony against me. So yeah, law enforcement's quote unquote investigation only makes up all these false testimonies, and it's only because since 2001 this is all they've done. They've been tipping everyone off. As soon as Assad gets found out right now in court, he simply just packs up and leaves. Law enforcement whispers in his ears, don't answer any questions, and he leaves. Like, that simple as that. You just saw it for yourselves, exactly what this quote unquote investigation was all about. All this is about is to inhibit me from being able to, my brain savant from being freed, performing out in the open. That's it. And if you don't believe me, ask law enforcement to do a 30-minute brain savant test, despite them showing in front of the entire world in November 14, 2025, that my brain savant's locked up. So there's no human rights concerns being raised. A 30-minute test. That excuse is no longer valid. They already showed it to the entire world on November 14th. So just ask them, why don't you just do a 30-minute test? And yeah, and then afterwards, you guys win because you did the 30-minute test and you showed the entire world that you're not obsessed with it, which is why you fabricated all those false testimonies. After all they did was run sex schemes and money fraud with people like Uncle Joey's in-laws, due to which they had to do it with Uncle Joey, later on even money fraud. Due to which I knew for a fact all law enforcement did was, if anyone was caught doing anything bad, they would just go tip that person off. When in fact, crimes are supposed to be investigated and treated like how they treated November 20th. The false testimony against me. The government found out, they took action, they put a government informant in there, they found out what that lie was for November 20th, they found out what the lies that were being planned even after November 20th were. That's how you treat a crime, like fabricating false testimonies to ruin someone's life. That's how you treat something like that. Not go up to the person and tip them off. That's not what you're supposed to do. In 2011, my dad, the greedy framer, like all the other criminals that law enforcement's BFFs with, like Assad, my dad, the greedy framer, in 2011 was recruiting people to join terror groups, giving sermons on jihad every single day from his house, to try to get them to join terror groups and mass murder innocent human beings. How much time has he been doing this for? We don't know that. No one knows that because law enforcement never investigated it. If they treated it like the government treated November 20th, they'd put a government informant in there and they'd find out. How many people actually joined terror groups? We don't know that because they didn't treat it correctly. If they treated it like November 20th, they'd put a government informant in there. We'd find out how many people have been mass murdered. How many people, like, whose lives have been ruined? How many people have been radicalized into being encouraged into joining terror groups later on? We don't know that. If they treated it the right way, like November 20th was treated, they'd put a government informant in there, and we'd find out exactly how many people have been radicalized, how long he's been doing this, what he's been doing, how many people have been mass murdered from people joining terror groups. Nothing was investigated. Everything closed up, him being tipped off. Suddenly one day he has a change of heart. Either that or he was tipped off. Obviously he was tipped off. And then you compare that to someone like my mother, who's never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life. For the more than 25 years she's been watched, and she made a promise to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child. She fulfilled that promise the moment I became even slightly mentally mature as a child. Never for me to ever again even remotely be present in any settings where anything even remotely being considered bad could be said around me, ever again. Despite me living with my mother my entire life. Never even living in the same country as my dad, the greedy framer. Not even once. Never living in the same country as my dad, the greedy framer, and never even talking to him on the phone, making it impossible for someone whom I've never even lived in the same country with, even when I was overseas. His plane tickets and phone conversations will tell you, never even lived in the same country as him, never even talked to him on the phone, making it impossible for someone like that to have had any influence on my life whatsoever, when we never even lived in the same country together, as the facts and evidences will show, never even talked on the phone, as the facts and evidences will show. My mother, whom I've lived with my entire life, has never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life for the more than 25 years that she's been watched, and from that moment she made that promise fulfilled, the moment I became even slightly mentally mature as a child, I've never been in a setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. And that small amount of time period when I was a child, I didn't have the slightest bit of mental maturity, which my mother said on February 15th at 8:30 p.m. that at that time she had to leave me behind with anyone willing to watch me for free. It could be any random person who was law enforcement's BFFs, all of them, that they ran sex schemes and money fraud with since 2001. That small time period, my mother had already talked to law enforcement about, and she would never be present there, clearly showing from facts and evidences that she was at work and she was telling the truth to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, telling them that this would only last for a little while more, and that as soon as I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, that she would make sure that I would never be seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me ever again. Ever again. And that's exactly what happened. Despite me living with my mother my entire life, never even lived in the same country as my dad, the greedy framer, never talked to him on the phone, making it impossible for someone whom I never even lived in the same country with, never even talked on the phone with, to have had any influence on my life whatsoever. Facts and evidences will show you that. That his plane tickets, everything will prove to you that we never even lived in the same country together. We never even talked to each other on the phone, making it impossible for someone to have had any influence on my life or environment whatsoever, except for my mother, throughout my entire life. And so, yeah, she's the person being deprived of this brain savant money, and that's exactly what this is about. Make no mistake, that's what it's about. Everyone's fighting over this. Junaid, who's trying to narrate, is only narrating because he wants to lock up my brain savant, because that's the only thing he cannot copy. He's even told people he's autistic. He's told people he lacks social skills, even though in 2024 he was calling people and telling them that he was very social and that I lack social skills. And now suddenly he's telling people he lacks social skills and he's autistic, and that, like, every single thing. He wears the glasses 24/7, wears a black sweater instead of the blue one that I wore, and like every single thing has to be copied. The only thing that he couldn't copy is my brain savant. And then even after copying every single thing, he's going after the woman and the girls that were coming after me, looking like a fool and idiot, because these girls only like me because of the monetary potential of my brain savant. Nothing wrong with that. Everyone wants someone who could provide for them. And getting rejected over and over again, having the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times, or being threatened to have the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times by the girls who were coming after me, with Junaid harassing them over and over again, 5 to 6 times, at least more than 5 to 6 times, since May 25th, 2026. Having the police call on him or threaten to have the police call on him, running after these girls enviously, only because if Hassan gets it, I get it, sort of thing. And after he copied every single thing he possibly could, tried to run after them, he got rejected over and over again. And so now, yeah. Now it's just enviously lock up his brain savant while begging him to help you scam these girls due to your sex addiction. And the last time I got it, right now, 7 a.m., 6 hours ago, at 1 a.m., he sent me a request with the Amazon partners to help him run these scams on these girls that are vulnerable by telling them all these CEO stories that are just BS about him. Yeah. And like, literally, this is what happened. He copied literally everything he could before he went after these girls and women that were coming after me. He just couldn't copy my brain savant. And he got rejected more than 5 to 6 times since May 25th, 2026. He's had the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times. And yeah, after that, he just got sick and tired of it, and now he's just like, he copied everything, and they're still rejecting him. Obviously, he can't copy the brain savant, so now he's trying to make exaggerated claims and false testimonies against me in court to try to lock up my brain savant. And this is the point that he's going to try to use from law enforcement, only because law enforcement's false testimonies, whether it was the wedding crime, whether it was the 10-year-old child claiming 25 years later that I said anti-government things to him in January 2026, or whether it was November 20th that law enforcement knew about, they've all been caught. So the only thing that law enforcement is going to try to give the Junaid now is going to be that someone said something bad around him when he was a child. That was when I was a child. I didn't even have the mental maturity yet in this world to be able to be left alone at home yet. As my mother said on February 15th at 8:30 p.m. And law enforcement is giving Junaid this talking point when after Junaid has tried everything from copying me, claiming he's autistic, lacks social skills, wears a black sweater instead of the blue one I wears glasses 24/7 from morning till night, and then trying to run after these girls that were coming after me because of my brain savant, and still getting rejected over and over again. And Junaid has had the police called on him at least 5 to 6 times since just May 25th, 2026, a couple of weeks ago. And then after he got rejected due to his extreme envy, like, if they like Son, then they have to like me too. And then he ran after them. He got rejected over and over and over and over again, had the police called on him multiple times, more than 5 to 6 times, and then enviously wanting to lock up my brain savant through this giving these exaggerations against me, being a child. And the thing about it is, while he's giving these exaggerations against me, he's also having law enforcement beg me, like 1 a.m. on just 6 hours ago, 6 hours ago, 1 a.m., July 16th, 1 a.m., begging me through the Amazon Partners thing, saying, can you please help me scam these girls, while he's making these exaggerations against me in court. Clearly showing from facts and evidences that this man is literally only doing all of this due to extreme envy of not being able to be liked by these girls, and then followed by extreme sex addiction and wanting me to help him basically scam these girls, other people's daughters, into sleeping with him, which is a very wrong thing to do, and I will never do it. It's just wrong. And so, yeah, extreme envy of my brain savant, which is one thing that he cannot copy, and he wants to have it locked up due to extreme envy, using the court and this trial, basically. Yeah, and that's what Junaid is trying to do right now, trying to exaggerate as much as possible, as enviously as possible right now, while he's begging me to help him scam these girls, while he's exaggerating these claims against me in the court, which makes absolutely zero sense, considering the fact that the one piece talking point that he's been given is that someone said something bad around him when he was a child. But you got to remember, when I was a child, I didn't even have the slightest bit of mental maturity yet in the world. And my mother, as she said on February 15th at 8:30 p.m., it was only when I was a child until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, enough to be left at home alone, and after which time I was never present in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again, as my mother promised law enforcement she would do when I was an 11-year-old child. And in that time period, when I would be present in any setting with any of law enforcement's BFFs, where anyone could have said anything even remotely considered bad around me, it would never have my mother present there. Either she'd be working in fast foods in the afternoon or in factories at night. She would never be present there. Okay, and so yeah, and yeah, so that just shows you from facts and evidences what exactly it is that happened. And as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was never present in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. And my mother has never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life. Not once. And ever since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I have never been heard uttering one word. No one in my setting has ever been heard uttering one word considered bad my entire life, ever again. My mother never has had in her entire life to begin with. And I've never lived with anyone else my entire life except for my mother. The facts and evidences will show you that. Even when I was overseas or any time, I've never lived with my dad, the greedy framer. The facts and evidences will show you that. And never even spoken to him over the phone ever in my entire life. The facts and evidences will show you that. Rarely, if ever, I talked to him on the phone. So yeah, she's the only one I ever lived with, making it impossible for anyone to have had any influence on my life or environment whatsoever. And so, yeah, she kept her promise as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, whereas law enforcement never fulfilled that promise they made to their country, because law enforcement's been running sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001, which is why they had to run sex schemes for Uncle Joey in November 2023 at the funeral, very aggressively, despite me refusing to help them at all. And they ran money fraud the entire year of 2023. For years they've been doing, and if they stopped their money fraud right now, it would only be a month or two ago. That would be it. So that child argument doesn't make any sense. And if people like Junaid are claiming this, then Junaid has to be asked why it has been asking law enforcement to help him run these scams on these girls, sex scams, to get these girls to sleep with him, like he was sending me through law enforcement at 1 a.m. on July 16th. And why has law enforcement been asking me to help Junaid do this, and then threatening to break my windshield or slash my tires, which Junaid and law enforcement did early July, just a few days ago, after Junaid had been threatening to break my car all year long. So Junaid knew that law enforcement was doing all of this to force me out of extreme envy first, to extreme envy of the fact that these girls liked me and didn't want Junaid, and then afterwards to try to force me to help them run these sex scams on these girls, which I will never do. I will never do that. That's just wrong. Someone else's daughter being scammed like that for sex, that's just wrong. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, did Junaid ever tell them to not break my things? No, I don't think so. Because Junaid wanted them to break my things first due to extreme envy, and then Junaid wanted them to break my things due to forcing me to trying to force me to help him run these sex scams on all these girls. So yeah, did Junaid tell them to stop? No. Junaid's been asking them to send me these threats to break my car due to extreme envy of these girls liking me and not wanting him, even though he copied literally everything, including my disease condition of autism, and the saying that he lacks social skills as well, even though in 2024 he was claiming that he was very social and I wasn't social at all. So yeah. So basically, facts and evidences will show you that it's due to extreme envy, and it's easily proven from the fact that Junaid has been rejected at least 5 to 6 times since May 25th, 2026. Not just rejected, as in had the police called on him, at least 5 to 6 times. He's been rejected literally every day by these girls. He's had the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times since May 25th, 2026. He was rejected by these girls every single day. He was running after girls that were coming after me, and he was getting rejected by them every single day, and he's had the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times since May 25th, 2026. And due to his sex addiction and not getting over his extreme envy, now he's trying to force law enforcement to force me to help him scam these girls by breaking my things, and now they've even broken my laptop charger, due to which I have to work with a tablet now. So yeah, these are the kinds of things that Junaid's been up to, and the kind of crimes that he's been committing, and how he's been begging me to help him run scams on these girls, while at the same time claiming in court that I'm a bad person, and that my brain savant should get locked up because one of law enforcement's own BFF said something remotely considered bad around me when I was a child. And even that time period, by the way, was already talked about with law enforcement by my mother when I was an 11-year-old child. And my mother made a promise to law enforcement that she fulfilled the moment I became even slightly mentally mature as a child. Never for me to have ever even remotely been present in a setting where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me ever again, despite me never living with anyone except for my mother my entire life. And that time period when my mother had to leave me behind with any of law enforcement's BFFs, my mother said on February 15 at 8:30 p.m. she had to do it because due to the force and necessity of a single mother, but she had already talked to law enforcement from beforehand when I was an 11-year-old child, and she fulfilled that promise when I even became a slightly mentally mature enough child. Never for me to ever again be seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad was ever said around me ever again. Clearly showing from facts and evidences that my mother fulfilled the promise that she made to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child. And that time period when I was a child being adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs had an excuse for the single mother to be leaving me behind with anyone willing to watch me for free while she worked at fast food restaurants in afternoon time or factories at night. And she fulfilled that promise as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, just like how she said on February 15 at 8:30 p.m. And we know for a fact that it was only due to the force and necessity of a single mother, because she would never be present in that setting due to working at either fast food restaurants in the afternoon time or in factories at nighttime. so that it had an excuse. My mother's excuse was valid and proven due to her not being present in that setting ever where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me. My mother's never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life, and as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was never seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again, despite me being with my mother my entire life and never even living with anyone else like my dad, the Greedy Framer, even in the same country or even talking to him on the phone. She's clearly showing from facts and evidences that my mother fulfilled the promise that she made to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, and that time period when I was even slightly mentally mature enough child yet, being adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs, had an excuse and had permission already made from law enforcement from beforehand, not making it illegal at all, which wouldn't be illegal at all anyways, because no one was giving sermons like for people to join terror groups, due to which we don't even know how many people did join terror groups or how many people have been mass murdered or anything like that, like what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011. And plus, the other fact that has to be looked at through facts and evidences is the fact that my mother has never been heard uttering one word considered bad my entire life, while she was being watched 24/7 with me. And from the moment I became even slightly mentally mature, I've never been even remotely present in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again, despite me only living with my mother my entire life, never with anyone else like my dad, the Greedy Framer, even in the same country as my dad, the Greedy Framer, or even talking to him on the phone, making it impossible for someone like him to have had any influence or effect on my life or environment whatsoever. If I was living with him, you have to look at people's actions when they don't know when they're being watched. My mother never knew she was being watched, even till this very day today. And what are her actions like? She's never had one incident of ever uttering one word considered bad her entire life. Whereas my dad, the Greedy Framer, you saw how he was like before he knew that he was being watched, because he was tipped out by law enforcement. In 2011, just one of the 3 times I've ever met him in my entire life, he was encouraging people from his house, giving them sermons to join terror groups and mass murder innocent human beings. Absolutely illegal, wrong. We don't know how many people killed, how many people have been joining terror groups, how many people radicalized, what happened, we don't know, because it was supposed to be handled like November 20th, where government informant was supposed to be placed so we could find out every single thing that happened. Like, we knew that November 20th was fabricated. We knew that there were more planned lies even after November 20th that were going to be made by my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters. Everything was found out due to an investigation being done with a government informant being put in. Nothing of the sort done in 2011. So we don't know. We don't know anything about him. All we know is that my dad, the Greedy Framer, was encouraging people to join terror groups, mass murder innocent human beings, and then he was tipped off. That's all we know. And if I was with my dad, the Greedy Framer, in my life, then guess what? I would have probably been a jihadist like him myself, and ended up like him instead of ending up like my mother. And how do you know I ended up like my mother? Because there was a brain scanner attached to my brain for years before July 1st, 2023. And guess what? Just like how my mother's never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life, the entire time the brain scanner was attached to my brain, I never thought of anyone of any race, religion, ethnicity as anything lower than me, and loved and respected each and every single person the same and equal way, whether it was a Christian person, Hindu, a Jewish person with the long beard, Orthodox Jewish people that I had to meet for work. Loved and respected each and every single person the exact same way. Orthodox Jewish person with a long beard, Christian, Hindu, anyone. Why did I end up like that? Because my mother has never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life. And from the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, her promise was fulfilled. I was never seen in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad was ever said around me ever again in my entire life, despite me never even living with anyone else except for my mother, never even living in the same country or speaking with him on the phone as my dad, the Greedy Framer. And the brain scanner will show you from facts and evidences of it being used on my brain for years before July 1st, 2023, when law enforcement told me about it. And that facts and evidences will show you that I am exactly like that, and I love everyone and respect and love everyone, whether they're Jewish, Christian, Hindu, anything. It could be an Orthodox Jewish person with a long beard. I would meet, love, and respect them the exact same way if I would have to meet them at work, only because of the way my mother raised me. And a brain scanner, facts and evidences will prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Whereas a person is proven from their actions when they don't know that they're being watched. And my mother never knew she was being watched till this very day today. For more than 25 years, never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life. And from the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, as my mother promised, I was never even remotely in a setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. And even the time period before then, it was only one of law enforcement's own BFFs, and only while my mother was at work, and we know this because my mother would never be present in that setting, and only told she would get off from work, either fast foods in the afternoon or factories at night, and only until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, as she promised, on February 15 at 8:30 p.m. Whereas my dad, the greedy framer, on the just one of the 3 times I've ever met in my life, law enforcement became a witness to the fact that they had to go into a state of panic because of what they had witnessed, where he was calling people to his house, giving them sermons on joining terror groups and recruiting them for terror groups, getting them to commit mass murder on innocent human beings. A person is judged by how they act when they don't know that they're being watched. Same goes with my mother as it goes with him. And my dad, the greedy framer, this is what he was doing. Law enforcement handle it exactly like how they handle all their BFFs, tipping him off. Is this what they were supposed to do? No. They were supposed to handle it like how the government handled November 20th. By putting a government informant in there for November 20th, finding out that my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters were not only fabricating false testimonies for November 20th, they had more planned lies even for after November 20th, and they found out what those planned lies were for even after November 20th. So this child thing is being given to someone like Junaid, who has a clearly invalid motive. He, early July, just a couple days ago, was threatening to break my windshield, slash my tires, only because I was refusing to help him scam these girls. He has had the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times since May 25th, 2026. Around which time he had the first police call on him. And he begs them to sleep with him, all these girls that were running after me, each and every single day. And he's had the police call on him at least 6 times since May 25th, 2026, from just a couple weeks ago. He's copied every single thing he could about me, even claiming that he's autistic and that he lacks social skills, even though in 2024 he was telling everyone that he's very social and I'm not. And now, due to extreme envy, he wishes to lock up my brain savant using that one talking point that, basically, that one talking point that law enforcement themselves cannot say, because they've been BFS with everyone who could have said anything remotely considered bad around me, running sex schemes and money fraud with them. But Junaid's envy, his invalid motive, is going to be easily proven from his actions. On July 10th, after he was even taking instructions from law enforcement to come in front of my car cameras due to extreme envy to try to advertise himself for these girls to try to run after them even more. So he's doing this out of extreme envy, trying to exaggerate everything as much as possible. And his thing is, his motive, invalid motive, is clearly seen from his actions. Having the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times since May 25th, 2026, from just a couple of weeks ago, and begging these girls to sleep with him each and every single day, the girls that were coming after me due to my brain savant, and not being able to do so despite changing everything about him, his appearance, even claiming that he's autistic and he lacks social skills, even though in 2024 he was saying that he's very social and I'm the only one who lacks social skills. And now, while he's claiming in court that I'm a bad person whose brain savant should not get freed, he's at the same time advertising to try to force me to help him run sex schemes on these girls. The last time was 1 a.m. on July 16th, just a few hours ago, to try to force me to help him with these sex scams on these girls. So his invalid motives are seen from his actions. And the one talking point he has nothing to do with, he was never there when I was a child. He's only using this due to his invalid motives. His invalid motives are proven from the fact that he has had the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times since May 25th, 2026. That was only a couple of weeks ago. And the fact that he begs these girls that were coming after me due to my brain savant for sex every single day and gets rejected, while having the police call on him at least 5 to 6 times in just the last couple of weeks alone. So yeah, invalid motive, and the talking point doesn't make any sense since my mother had already spoken with law enforcement. As an 11-year-old child, she fulfilled her promise the moment I became even slightly mentally mature as a child. Whereas law enforcement never fulfilled their promise to their country. They've been running a sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001 that are still going on right now. Money fraud still going on right now. Probably money fraud stopped a few months ago. But yeah, that's all I had to say.